Hello, this is Angelia, and you are listening to or watching the podcast Why You Do What You Do. The podcast that talks about human development and psychology to help you figure out maybe a little bit more about why you do what you do. And of course, last time we were, talking about complete openness in relationships. And that should be the goal. That should be what you want in a relationship. And if you've not decided that yet or found that yet, you start working on that. We're going to take back up on that. Lesbians are more likely to have stable, monogamous relationships than gay men. Since the AIDS epidemic, however, gay men have become more interested in long-term relationships because they don't want to die. Gay and lesbian partners who live together tend to be as committed as married couples. So, there's no difference there. Today, gays and lesbians in the United States and Europe are struggling to obtain legal recognition of their unions, as in the Netherlands and the state of Vermont, and the right to adopt children or raise their own. And more states are, letting that be a thing on the books, which they should. Come on, guys, come on. If God is love, how's love going to be wrong? Just go throw that one in the mix there. Many homosexuals who have been married and had children before coming out have been unable to gain or keep custody. And that was in some of the southern states. I ain't gonna touch it. But anyway, people are people, Why be hateful? Why be sexist because someone's different than you? It's none of your business what they're doing. Just get over it. Others are adopting children or conceiving via assisted reproduction techniques. To give these children the benefit of two parents, the American Academy of Pediatrics Committee on Psychosocial Aspects of Child and Family Health, that's a mouthful, supports laws permitting adoption by the parent's same-sex partner. Because it is a fact that you do benefit from having two parents. Masculine and feminine. Now, that doesn't necessarily have to mean it's a male to female. So, gays and lesbians are also pressing for an end to discrimination in employment and housing. There are laws in place, but we all know just because there's law doesn't mean individuals obey that law. Unfortunately, they have free will to be jerks if they want to be. A current issue is whether unmarried domestic partners, homosexual or heterosexual, should be entitled to coverage under each other's health insurance and pension plans, should be able to file joint tax returns, and should receive bereavement leave and other customary benefits of marriage. Now, I personally believe they should, because if you are married, then yes, you should, because there's no reason for it not to be, other than sexism. Such provisions already are in effect in France, Sweden, Norway, Denmark, and the Netherlands. And these are all more, dare I say, civilized countries than our own. Cohabitation. Cohabitation is a lifestyle in which an unmarried couple involved in a sexual relationship live together in what is sometimes called a consensual or informal union, or common law, is the one we have here on the books. Such unions have become the norm in many European countries, such as Sweden and Denmark, while cohabitating couples have practically, that's all bug named Jesus, the same legal rights as married ones, and are becoming increasingly common in the United States and Canada. So we're catching on, we're getting in with the, more civilized countries, and realizing, again, people are people. Like I say, it happens in nature. That means it's natural. Now, is it common? No, it's not super common. It's not like 1 in 3 people are gay, but it happens. So again, it's none of your business what type of sex other people are having. So my advice is don't be a sexist and keep your nose out of it. You won't want somebody, wanting to know what kind of sex you and your partner's having, do you? None, yeah. In Britain, 70% of first partnerships are cohabitations, and 60% of cohabitating couples eventually marry. So, these people, and a lot of young people are doing this nowadays, they move in together. They're going to see, are they able to do this? Now, in the old Irish tradition, they had hand fastings. The couple got hand fasted. They lived together for a year before, you talking to the priest to say, okay, we want to get married. And, that might have had to do with shortage of priests or the way the community was. But, that's the way they tried it out. It was a trial marriage to see if they were going to work out. And if the end of the year was up and they didn't want to stay together, they just untie the knot, have another little untying ceremony. It's like, no, it's not going to work out. We're too different. And then they would go look for somebody else. And then if it did work out, they call the priest and they get married and have another big old party about it. So, this is not a new concept. This concept has been around since pre-recorded history. And let's face it, back in the days of the Neanderthal and cave people, I doubt if anybody was marrying them. The dude claimed his woman, and that's how that went. In Canada, 12% of couples were cohabitating in 1996, twice as many as in 1981. So, Canada has gone up, like everybody else. The widespread acceptance of cohabitation in the United States is remarkable, considering that until about 1970, it was against the law and still is in some states. So some states still on the book say you can't live together unless you're married. You might want to, just for fun, check out your state and see if that's a law. It is not enforced. No one I've ever heard of got knocked on the door, hey, you can't do this. So I don't know why. You might want to petition your state to get that off the books. A total of 7.6 million men and women classified themselves as cohabitating in the year 2000, representing 3.7% of all households. And the actual numbers may be well higher because some people don't want to report it, especially young people who might be away from home, cohabitating, don't want the parents to know, because the parents are, a little more conservative or whatever. 41% of these unmarried partners, the households included children under the age of 18. So there are a lot of people just having families without getting that piece of paper. Much larger numbers have ever cohabitated, about 41% of 15 to 44-year-olds as of 1995. So, it's not going away. Sorry. Cohabitation can be either a substitute for marriage or a trial marriage, such as hand fasting. Consensual unions have long been accepted as an alternative to marriage in many Latin American countries. This may explain why, for example, Puerto Ricans have higher rates of cohabitation and are less likely than non-Hispanic white Americans to marry their live-in partners. Because where they're from, it's a socially acceptable thing, and it's not that big a deal. Although family law in the United States gives cohabitators few of the rights and benefits of marriage, this is changing, particularly with regard to protections for children of cohabitating couples. Because, there are people who get in other people's business and decide that's not a good environment for kids. They need a married family, blah, blah, blah. But, again, it's not good for people to be doing that. Alright, sorry about that. As you've heard, probably the phone was ringing, but it wasn't nobody, so. People, leave me alone. And as cohabitation becomes increasingly common, cohabitating couples are under less social pressure to marry. So, as it becomes more mainstream, less and less people feel the need to get that piece of paper. It is easy to keep extending the trial period before making a long-term commitment. And that's an individual choice. Personally, I think there needs to be a ceiling there because I have been in relationships where I have been used, and I say, the old adage, poo or get off the pot. You either want to be in this relationship with me or you don't. There's a time limit. There also is an increasing trend towards cohabitation after divorce as an alternative to remarriage, and that's because people get soured on marriage because of the divorce. They got to put out all the money, and their stuff gets divided, and then someone always gets shafted in a divorce. There's always someone who gets the raw end of the deal. So to save themselves that, they feel like it's easier just to cohabitate and not have to go through that again. However, cohabitating relationships tend to be less satisfying than marriages. So there's the drawback there. It's less satisfying than being married. Cohabitants miss out on some of the economic, psychological, and health benefits of marriage, which come from the security of a long-term commitment, greater sharing of economic and social resources, and a stronger community connection. Because people who are married, they usually do make a long-term commitment. It might not work out, but then again, it might. You have these older folks get with their 50, 60, 70, year anniversaries, and that, to me, that's great. If you could stick it out with each other that long, and greater sharing of economic. There's people. I ain't gonna say the name for these people, but there are people who, they pick the most wealthy partner they can find and glom onto that partner. It doesn't matter about the personality and things of that nature. I'm not down with that. You need to like somebody for who they are. But being in a relationship, you do build wealth together. And because you can have checking and savings together, and retirement accounts and things like that. And with both of you, it does seem like you do better economically versus keeping everything separate. And again, most people out in the community, when you say my husband, my wife, they respect that more. My boyfriend, my girlfriend, my, live-in or whatever. Oh my. Premarital cohabitation has accompanied the trend toward delayed marriage. And again, that's because people are waiting until they're older, which is a good thing because they need to be mature enough to be in a mature relationship with somebody else. Excuse me. More than half of all U.S. couples who marry have lived together first. So, it's a 50% rate. And that would be an interesting study. I don't know if anyone's ever done that. Which 50% end up getting divorced? There's a 50% divorce rate, 50% cohabitation marriage rate. Which 50% got divorced? The ones who lived together first or the ones who didn't? That'd be an interesting study. Looking at the data another way, more than half, 58%, of first cohabitations that last 3 years and 70% of those that last 5 years end in marriage. So, by living together, these people figure out, yeah, we do love each other. We can get along pretty good. Let's go ahead and get married. However, cohabitating unions tend to be less stable than marriages. And that's because it's an open door policy. When they're just living together, they realize I can leave at any time, or he can leave at any time if this is my apartment or house or whatever. So that commitment is not as strong as in people who are married, and there's more to lose if they break up. 99%, 39% break up within 3 years, and 49% within 5 years. So we just heard the other statistic where in these 3 trials, they get married. But then there's the other side where they don't. Many adults have 2 or more live-in partners before marriage. And I got married young, so I had never lived with him. And then after my first divorce, I lived with a man, and we did not end up getting married because it was too one-sided. That didn't work out. And then I got married again, and then this time we lived sort of together. He visited. He didn't stay here and live here, but we had a hand fasting to see if it was going to work out, because it was our 3rd time, and we're both kind of wary of things. So we lived together for the year, and everything was all right. So we were like, okay, let's get married again. Yeah. And so far, I'm gonna knock on some wood here. Put it that way. Couples who have a child together are less likely to break up, whether or not they are married. So the children are a factor in deciding whether you're going to stay with this person or not, even if you're not married. According to national surveys, most young adults think cohabitation before marriage is a good idea. So our young adults think it's a good idea. Yet, according to some research, couples who live together before marriage tend to have unhappier marriages and greater likelihood of divorce. And that's from this one particular study. I think that's, just a footnote there, because most people I know who lived together before marriage actually stayed together longer. That's why I said that would be an interesting study on that one, to see who stayed together longer, people who lived together first or people who just got married. Because I'm betting, but I digress on that one. In part, the higher divorce rates of couples who cohabitate before marriage may reflect the kinds of people who choose cohabitation, and not the effects of cohabitation itself. So they're saying maybe these people weren't, too into having a committed relationship to begin with. Cohabitants tend to have unconventional attitudes about family life, and they are less likely than most other people to select partners like themselves in age, race, or ethnicity, and previous marital status. So with the unconventional attitude might also be unconventional attitudes about partners, and that might lead to some opposites attract things, and things that don't work out so good. They are more likely to have divorced parents and stepchildren, and to have liberal attitudes towards divorce. So if your parents got divorced, you're not thinking marriage is the end all be all. It might not be your goal so much. And a lot of blended families nowadays, and like I say, it's all too easy to give up. All these factors tend to predict unstable marriages. And like I say, you gotta know why you're getting married. If you're getting married because it's gonna be wonderful and you have this big happy wedding and blah blah blah, I've heard brides and the wedding is more important to them than the groom. I'm just gonna say, a woman I knew was gonna marry this one man. They broke up. 2 weeks later, she married another one, used the same dress and everything. And yeah, okay, all right, whatever. Marriage customs vary widely, but the universality of some forms of marriage throughout history and around the world suggests that it meets fundamental needs. Monogamy. And that's, of course, where you want one mate for life. You want that love, like we were just talking about before, and we desire that. Monogamy, marriage to one mate, is the norm in most developed societies. Polygamy, a man's marriage to more than one woman at a time. Oh, that's my grandfather. Haha. Is common in Islamic countries, African societies, and parts of Asia. So in the other side of the world, it's not that uncommon. In polyandrous societies, where women generally wield more economic power, a woman may take several husbands. In some Himalayan regions, a set of brothers. So they got a system where she decides, well, I want these brothers, you know. They're mine. That's the way it works for them, you know. In most societies, marriage is considered the best way to ensure orderly raising of children. And that's how marriage came about. You make this commitment to this person and to have these little people and raise these little people. You know, the protection of the man and the woman. It allows for a division of labor within a consuming and working unit. Usually it offers intimacy, commitment, friendship, affection, sexual fulfillment, companionship, and an opportunity for emotional growth, as well as new sources of identity and self-esteem. And that's if it's a healthy marriage, and it should be. In certain Eastern philosophical traditions, the harmonious union of male and female is considered essential to spiritual fulfillment and the survival of the species. Well, spiritual fulfillment, I feel like that's union with God. But survival of the species, yeah, you're going to need a male and a female for that one. Unless, like I say, there's some science involved in that. Today, some benefits of marriage, such as sex, intimacy, and economic security, are not confined to matrimony, as we buzz off bug in the name of Jesus, as we talked about earlier. Still, many surveys in Europe and North America show that married people tend to be happier than unmarried people, though those in unhappy marriages are less happy than those who are unmarried or divorced. So basically, it's the kind of marriage you got. If you're in an unhappy marriage, you're going to be unhappy. And if you're in a happy cohabitation, you're going to be happy. So, you know, marriage in and of itself is not, you know, a good thing or a bad thing. Contrary to common belief, women are as happy in marriage as men. And that's true. It's like I told my husband one day, you know, because he was fussing, and I'm like, dude, I'm easy. All you gotta do is love me and be good to me. That's it. That's all I ask for. You'll never get anybody easier than me on that. You don't have to meet all these criteria, be this, that, or the other person. You just gotta love me and be good to me. That's all I want. People who marry and stay married, especially women, also tend to accumulate more wealth than those who do not marry or who divorce. And, you know, that is in part because of the still uneven level of income in our, you know, country. The last I read is like, for every dollar men make, women still only make like 73 to 75 cents. In a national sample of more than 2,000 U.S. adults, age 18 to 90, both genders reported equal benefit from a marital attachment. Women from economic support and men from emotional support. Oh, we're going back to the Bible. You know, God said, it's not good for man to be alone. I have a joke about that, but I won't get into it. You know, it's... but anyway, you know, we're here to emotionally support that man, because remember, we have 3 times the connections in our corpus callosum in the center of our brain. Our brain talks to both sides. We don't have to shift gears between emotion and logic. They're both working at the same time, talking to each other. That's how we have women's intuition. It's not really to say our brain works about 3 times faster than y'all's. Men have to shift gears. They're in emotional or they're in logical. So men need the emotional support from us because we're more emotionally astute. They're not there. And, you know, try as they may, you know, unless their brain is closer to ours, which might be happening, we have, some of the chromosomes are getting ready to go. But, you know, they need our help. So, you know, we're supposed to be a helpmate for these men, and support them emotionally. Entering matrimony. Historically and across cultures, the most common way of selecting a mate has been through arrangement, either by the parents or by professional matchmakers. So, throughout history, the most common way, so this tells you this has been a thing in parts of the world for, since time immemorable, was arranged marriages. The parents arranged the marriage, or a matchmaker. You went to a matchmaker, like in the Mulan, matchmaker. But, you got arranged marriages. Sometimes betrothal takes place in childhood. So there are people, oh, I want my son to marry your daughter. Okay. It's all hooked up from day one. The bride and groom may not even meet until their wedding day. So imagine that. You're going to marry this guy you don't even know. We think it's terrible, but in a lot of places in the world, that's just the way it's done. Free choice of mates on the basis of love has become the norm in the Western world. So that's normal for here, but on the other half of the world, not so much. But in Japan, 25 to 30% of marriages still are arranged. Now that's changing because of they're westernizing, and they want the love and all that too. But a lot of families still think that that's the way to go about it. That's the only way to get a good match, is if you have people sit down and compare notes. It's like they're doing eHarmony over there on their own. Oh, this matches this match. Oh, no. The typical marrying age varies across cultures. In Eastern Europe, people tend to marry in or before their early 20s. But industrialized nations, such as Sweden, are seeing a trend toward later marriage as young adults take time to pursue educational and career goals or to explore relationships. And that's good, because what they're doing is they're making sure they got their stuff straight first before they bring another person into the mix. And then the couple can get their stuff straight first before they bring little people into the mix. So, that is a good stair-step way of doing it. And that's why I recommend to folks, the psychologists all say parents age of 30 is great. So that's what I tell people. Get married when you're 30, start popping out your little people, between 30 and 35. And there you go. You should have the best outcome for those little people. And they're what matters. In France, the average bridegroom is 30 and his bride 28, 5 years older than their counterparts a quarter century ago. In Canada, the average age of first marriage for women has risen from 23 to 27, and for men from 26 to 29 since 1961. So back in the day, they were getting married younger. If you were single in your upper 20s, you was an old maid back in the day. In the United States, the median age of first-time bridegrooms is about 27, and of first-time brides 25, a rise of about 3.5 years since the early 1940s. So again, back in the day, if you was single in your mid-20s, you was old. You're an old maid. But again, I feel like that could be improved upon. I know people getting married in their 20s, and it's not working out, and they're getting divorced. So, use your 20s to get your education, to get a firm foundation under you, get a job, a career, whatever, and have a firm foundation under you before you start throwing other people into the mix. It's better to know who you are than, let somebody else try and tell you. The transition to married life brings major changes in sexual functioning, living arrangements, rights and responsibilities, attachments, and loyalties. And of course, if you're married, you pretty much have sex whenever you want, anytime you want, anywhere you want in the house, Again, you're living with the hubby. You're not living by yourself anymore. You have to make room for the hubby stuff, which can be a problem. Rights and responsibilities. And, sometimes you have to know those things. And there's going to be a division of responsibilities. One person shouldn't have to do everything. You both live in the house. So, you both should have to take care of the house, unless she's not doing anything, then, you should help out, fellas. Attachments, again, you're going to be having family and friends and things, and loyalties. The husband, at that point in time should come first. He should come before the family, the friends, and everything, because he's your mate. You chose him, and that should be the deal. Among other things, marriage partners need to redefine the connection with their original families, because the family should come behind that. Me and my hubby had a little problem with that in the first round. The blood family is where you were born into. Your chosen family is the one you make. That should come first. Wife and kids, hubby and kids should come first. Blood relations should come behind that. And anyone is telling you differently, it's because they want you to choose them first. Balance intimacy with autonomy, because you want to be with the other person, but you have to be your own person too. It's like I told some of my clients. A person can be a part of your life, but they can't be your life. And if you're making another person your life, then you're going to be unfulfilled. And establish a fulfilling sexual relationship. And of course, like I say, you're married now, you can pretty much do whatever you want, wherever you want, however you want. Y'all figure that out. And that's where I'm going to leave you today. I hope this helped you figure out maybe a little bit more about why you do what you do. Please like and share this educational program so we can spread it around the world. If you want to help me out, subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you want to help me out even more, go to my Patreon page and become a patron. That's all for now. Until next time.